Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning into the channel. I'm here with Callie, and today we're going to be talking everything about navigating that first semester of PT school, what the transition was like. Without further ado, thank you so much for being here today, Callie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Callie Ray Floyd, and I am from Dallas, Texas. I just graduated in April from Brigham Young University with my Bachelor of Arts in Dance and Gerontology minor. And now I'm in my first semester, or I just finished my first semester. It's weird to say that I'm done with it now, but just finished my first semester of PT school at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center.
Awesome.
And I also teach Pilates, and exercise is a big part of my life. And I'm hoping to use that to work with like, athletes and dancers and go into Schroth PT.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a little about me.
Um, so Shroth PT, is that kind of a specialty that you're interested in right now?
Yeah, that's my current specialty that I'm hoping to go into. I have bad scoliosis myself, and that's a huge reason of why I want to go into physical therapy. And
Yeah.
so Schroth kind of helped me to get past that. I was supposed to have a full spinal fusion and was told I wouldn't be able to dance anymore and all these things. Yeah, and so I wore a full back brace for 4 years, did PT, Pilates, kept dancing, and was actually able to decrease my curves so I wasn't a surgery candidate anymore. And so Schroth is super huge. It's a great form of PT for those with scoliosis, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's a really small field, but it's been growing, and so I hope to be able to help with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that is that like your story as to why you got into PT, like that being able to help.
hmm
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of times, like with me Western medicine, like we constantly are given like, oh, this is like the drug you should take, or this is the surgery you should get, and that's what I love about PT is it's giving people showing how much their bodies are capable of, and I want people to be able to see that you're capable of doing way more than you think you're able to. Our bodies can do so much, and with the right treatment and care, you're able to accomplish way more than you think you can with just your own body.
I love that. And I love that you had mentioned too, like Western medicine and like how you've taken a different approach with your own healing and then also helping other in their healing. So that's awesome.
hmm
You had mentioned too that you enjoy doing Pilates. I know that the first semester of PT school can be a lot. Were you able to continue that in school, and how did that look when you started?
Yeah, I was. So my last semester of undergrad, I used that to get trained in stop Pilates back in Utah. And then I took that training. I like the first month of school, I didn't work at all because I just really wanted to get settled in. And honestly, I'm so glad that I started working the second month because my first month in, I went in thinking like, oh, school's gonna be my whole life, and I was so worried. I was like, oh man, I shouldn't take this Pilates job because I can't do anything outside of school. That's silly. They told me like school would be my full-time job and you shouldn't be doing anything else. But honestly, having that mindset, like I was burning out so quick because I was constantly like on campus and like 8 to 5 every day, and if not later, I was usually there until like 8 or 9 and was just studying constantly. And then once I started this job, I had to find a balance of, okay, studying, but then also getting to go and practice Pilates and then also teaching these classes. And it taught me a lot better balance. I wasn't burning out, and I realized, oh, you don't have to be spending all those hours. You're still getting just as good of grades, if not better, by doing things for yourself that you enjoy as well.
I
So, yeah, I really enjoyed being able to teach at the same time.
love that. I love that you had mentioned too that you had adjusted like how you did things because you recognized that you were getting burnt out. And I think that's super common too in the beginning, just to kind of go gung ho with school. And it sounds like you were still successful and able to balance everything, even with doing Pilates, teaching it too.
And I feel like honestly, I was even more successful once I found the balance. Like I had a really good friend that we got close about like a month into the semester, and we started going and working out too, and she helped me realize that you gotta have that balance. Like you have to be going and like working out and taking care of yourself just as much as you're dedicating everything to school. Because if you're putting everything into that, eventually like your can's gonna run empty and you're not gonna have anything more to give. And so if you're not refilling yourself by doing these other things, you're gonna lose all that energy and not be able to keep giving yourself that 100%.
Yeah. I hope anyone that's listening that like really takes that as a sign too, because have you ever felt like too the guilt of not studying, you're doing something else, and is that a thing? I
Oh,
remember,
100%. Absolutely. There were so many times that I'd be like sitting there after an exam and be a jet like we oh how we do is we have our exams Friday mornings in the summer and then usually that day people take off and they don't study. But I remember the first few exams I was like, "Oh my gosh, I should be starting to study for the next unit now even though we like hadn't even touched it or anything." And just feeling that guilt and I was like, "No, I can go out and do something fun with my friends." One thing me and my good friends started doing is we would have one fun thing we planned each week because we started getting just so into this like study, that's all we were doing. And then we'd end up just sitting at home, not wanting to study, but then just feeling burnt out. So we planned one fun thing a week. We'd always have one day that was like, okay, we're gonna get together this day and we're all gonna like go out and hang out with our friends, or we're gonna watch The Summer I Turned Pretty. That was like our
yeah.
series we started watching this summer. Or we just would have a girls' day, just something that we all planned to go do together so we could have our minds off school and also have that one thing that we were looking forward to. So we weren't just thinking about, okay, now we have this next thing to do, next thing and next thing.
Yeah. And that's great advice too. It just gives you something to look forward to. Like in the day to day, it can be very like boring. So it's great that you had something to look
Mhm.
forward to.
100%.
I was there anything you weren't expecting going into the first semester? Like when you started, anything that stood out to you?
Yeah, I think I just didn't realize like how accelerated it would be. I knew we would be learning a lot of information. And I remember our first 2 days, it was like kind of like a like gentle going in. Then by our third day, I think we had a day that we learned over 100 slides in one lecture. And all of us were just like, holy crap, how are we gonna learn all of this stuff this quick? Because we have to know this by the quiz we have tomorrow morning. And then just kind of being surprised how quickly you can learn this stuff if you really do put the time and effort into it. There were a lot of times I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to learn all of this. And then I went in the next day and took the quiz and was like, oh, I actually learned a lot more than I thought I did. I walked away from studying feel like I knew nothing, and then you learn way more than you think you do. And I think one of the coolest things too was we had classes like open labs and stuff, and we had a lot of just interaction with all of the different people in our classes because we were combined with PTs, OTs, and ATs. And so we were constantly talking with different people from different occupations, which was really cool. But then we also got these opportunities to help teach each other in those scenarios. And I realized that when you're going and teaching others the stuff that you're learning, you also learn it yourself way better. That was the moments I felt like everything clicked a lot more is when I was teaching those others around me. So I think those were some things I didn't really expect, but learned in my first semester.
That's awesome. I love that your program does that. That's actually really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're really big on interprofessional education where we're all working together. Like they make us do interprofessional activities. So
Mhm.
we went and we did like a escape room, they called it. This university sets it up and you're like trying to solve an escape room. So they
Yeah.
just have different things where we're interacting with different professions, which is really cool.
Yeah. And then I'll clip this part in. So, on top of Feynman's technique, do you have any other study techniques that you found were super helpful for you?
One of the most helpful ones for me was the whiteboard technique. I know it's just like classic, be like, oh, okay, use a whiteboard. But
Yeah.
the way that I used it that really helped me is I'd go through slides and like read the information and then I'd write out everything I remembered and then I'd go back through the slide and see what I missed and then take a different color of marker and write in everything I missed. Then I'd erase it and basically redo that all over again. I did that multiple times until it felt like I could write the things out without messing up and missing those small details. And it was especially helpful when I was doing like OINAs, right, like writing out what the different origins, insertions, including the blood flow. I would just take up a whole whiteboard doing it. Like some of my my classmates would walk by and be like, "What are you doing? That looks insane." But it was the best way for me for sure to learn everything because then I don't know I'm a visual learner too, and
Yeah.
so just imagine the whiteboard there and seeing the contrasting colors like that was a game changer for me because I remembered those things that were it was like, oh wait, nope, that's what it's supposed to be because I wrote the last thing the last time.
Right. That's I love that you mentioned the colors too, because I was the same way too. And like I don't know about you, but I can
Mhm.
almost like remember where it was on the whiteboard, and I was like, okay, what color is it? And
Yes, 100%.
and for other classes, like are there other techniques, or are you strictly like a visual learner, or are there any other techniques that you found were helpful?
I think whiteboard was super helpful. And then I studied definitely very differently for gross anatomy than I did for functional anatomy. For gross, it was very much like whiteboard technique as well as teaching others. And that was my main go-tos for studying for that. But then for functional anatomy, a lot of it's physical that you're like seeing like, okay, so this joint rolls and slides this direction, or both of them roll and slide in the opposite directions. And
Mhm.
so it was very much like physical, feeling how it moved. And so I'd be like standing up and be like, okay, how does this joint feel as it's moving? Kind of finding the patterns of like, okay, so if it's a convex surface on a concave, then it's going to be the same or opposite directions. Just seeing those different patterns in the movement. And then that was a class too. I really felt like being with others and talking it out made a huge difference because you may have read a slide and thought it said one thing, but then you talk it out with that group and they're like, oh, wait, we all have different ways we saw this. And then I remember there was one time we had a whole group that we were talking about things and went through all the slideshows the day before the test. And then the next day, one of the things we talked about like was specifically on the test that wasn't explicit on the slides, but we dove deeper into it. And so that was a moment we were all like, okay, this is so helpful to work together with your peers to see the
Yeah.
different viewpoints we all have because you'll have those conversations and be like, oh, I remember that one thing that like Joseph said, and now that's been on the test.
Yeah. That is so satisfying. I know exactly what you're talking about because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool. It almost feels like a potluck. Like everyone's kind of bringing their own thing and then together it's like
100%.
one I don't know what the word for it. One big potluck. One big good meal.
Yeah, it's like the knowledge potluck. Everyone just gets a good taste.
Yeah. And I think group setting is interesting too, because I like, and you'll see too, like in your program, how do you go about group studying?
So I tried group studying in the very beginning. Like I started originally by myself, like only studying with myself, and then the second year is like you need to study with people, like it'll be a game changer. So I went to some group studies, and there was honestly a couple that I went to. I was like, this is not helpful at all. Either everyone's getting distracted, or these people haven't even looked at the information, and so I'm just sitting there like talking about stuff I don't know super well, but I've at least read through it. So if you're going to do group study, you absolutely have to go through the information on your own first. If you go just straight into group study, it usually ends up being one person teaching everyone or everyone just being confused together. And it would have been a lot more productive if people just like took an hour, went through the information, and then came all together. Because, yeah, when it's just one person teaching, like, it's like it can be helpful, but usually it's just words going in one ear and out the other. I've even had times that friends thought they were ready for group study and they're like, crap, I didn't dig into this information half as much. And so then they go and study on their own, then they come back and like, okay, now I'm ready. And then it becomes a lot better for us all to study together because everyone kind of realizes where they need to be for us to be able to keep building and moving forward.
Yeah. I love too that you had mentioned that because it almost motivates you to study because then you're thinking like, I don't want to come to this unprepared and I want to contribute. So I love that you had mentioned that.
Mm-hmm. 100, yeah. Yeah, because we in our classes like we worked in the cadaver lab and at Tech it's interesting because they have an anatomical institute where there's like 80 different cadavers that we all work on throughout the semester. And so you're put into a tank group and different tank groups each block and we'd have lab quizzes that we had to take as a group.
Yeah.
And so if you went into that lab quiz, like there were some people that they were okay like going in not knowing as much and they were hoping that someone else in their tank group knew this stuff. And
Mhm.
that usually wasn't fair. Like people tried doing that the first two exams and usually they kind of got screwed over because too many people thought the same thing.
Yeah.
And so then it got to a point that everyone was working really hard for these to be ready for these lab quizzes. And so then if there was this like one little detail that you didn't get, there was usually someone else that had it. And so you were all able to collaborate together and even if you didn't think you did well on the lab quiz, in the end, we all had by putting our brains together, we're able to get a way better grade than we thought we had. And so just it's a lot of more working together in PT school than you think it'd be. Like even thinking back, I didn't think it was that much, but now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, dang, we really did. Like we're constantly working together to try to lift each other up and do the best we could in this program.
That's awesome. And I don't know about you, but like, was that a big shift from undergrad? Did you notice like that classmate
Mhm.
collaboration was a lot more?
Oh, so different. I remember undergrad, like BYU, you have a lot of perfectionists there, and so everyone's just trying to get like straight A's, doing the best they can there. Like people would be not getting a 4.0 and freaking out, and it was just craziness. And remember, everyone was constantly comparing, like, oh, like so what's your GPA? I remember going on dates, and that was some of the first like people would ask me that. I'm like, that's such a weird question. But
Yeah.
then here, like basically everyone was just like, okay, we're all trying to get this better grade. Like, let's all go into this and get 100 together. And it
Yeah.
never really was about like, oh, well, I did better than everyone else. It was more like, okay, let's all try to like make sure like, oh, well, let's get all of us PTs together to do best we can. Like, we want to be the PT class that has no one that fails out. And
Yeah.
so we're all trying to like come together. And it was just, it's a lot of uplifting one another. And if someone's having a rough day, like everyone kind of recognizing that and uplifting that person too. And so it was just it's a lot of we all know we're in the same boat and we want to get to the same place.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that in PT school that we're all trying to do the same thing and there's no more of that like, oh, I need to be better than you. It's how can we all be better together?
Yeah. So for all the students that are starting programs pretty soon, there's actually a lot of logistics that go into it that I didn't expect. Was there anything that you didn't expect when you were moving into PT school from finding a place, taking out loans, all this logistic stuff?
Yeah, I think I knew I'd have to move across the country to a different state, but I didn't realize how much was going into it and how big of a move it would be until like my parents came up the week we were moving me out. I was like, "Oh, geez, we have to get a U-Haul and we have to drive a lot of hours to get to this new place." But I think I'm a very religious person, so God was in the details with a lot of things. I felt like when I went to tech to interview and then came back, there's just a lot of things that fell together. I was able to find a place super easy and just a lot of people were willing to help me once I came down there to move in. And so I think it's really important just to kind of trust the process. There's a lot that happens while it's going on, but as long as you're like doing your best and really trying to be prepared, don't push off everything till the very end. I knew a lot of people that did that, like whether it was with getting vaccines and blood tests. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't know about is you have to get like your vaccines and your blood tests and a lot of people push that off. And so then it was a lot of things they had to do at the very end. And these tests take weeks. So being on top of the things as you receive them, that's super important. And but then just trusting in the process that as long as you're staying on top of the emails that you're receiving from your university and what I did that really helped is just starting this Instagram that I made for my PT page is I was able to connect with all these people that have been through it and then it wasn't as scary of process going into it because I had all this advice from all these other people. I even did a post. I was like, "What's your biggest advice going into PT school?" and had so much cool support and a lot of really great advice. And I'm
Yeah.
kind of going on a tangent here. A lot of really big things with preparing for PT school, but I think overall biggest takeaway is like finding people that have been through it and turning to them for advice, being prepared, like doing what you can ahead of time so it's not as overwhelming, and then just trusting in the process that if like trusting in whatever you believe and whatever you've worked towards, it's all gonna come together and it'll be way better than you could have even ever imagined it to be.
I love that mindset. And I think that'll be so encouraging for so many students to hear because it can feel like a lot from like all the things you have to do and all these pieces that have to come together.
Mm-hmm.
Was there how was your orientation? Like the way your program did it, how did you feel the day of orientation?
Orientation was interesting. Our program does it that we have half the day that's online. And
Mm.
honestly, like a lot of the information they gave us was stuff we should have known before, and most of us had already figured out by then because it
Oh,
was like to do with our like student loans and
yeah.
housing. It was like different things like that basically all of us had figured out. But I think because there's some people that joined like the day before the
Oh,
orientation, because you can join PT school programs if people drop out
mhm.
up to like the day of, if anyone watching didn't know that. So so I think they had to go re-go over that information. So the first half of the day was kind of like, okay, like getting you the basics of what you need to know. And then we came in person for lunch and then to meet everyone. We went on a tour of the facility and then they kind of dove deeper more into like our individual programs within the college because it's like our PT schools within the School of Health Professions and there's like 8 other colleges within the Health Sciences Center.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of medical stuff going on at Tech, but it's cool because you go from like having this big group and then we go down and we get to know our PT people kind of at the in-person in orientation. And it's a lot of information that first day, but then you have that and the next day it's just going straight into classes. So it's a quick turnaround, but it's nice that we at least get that orientation to meet people, see the facility, and kind of be like, okay, we're ready to hop right into this.
That's awesome. I think that's seems pretty structured, other than like the half a day you
Mhm.
figured out.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone that's about to start a program with all the knowledge that you have now about going through the first semester of PT school?
I'd say have grace with yourself, but don't let yourself fall behind too early. I know a lot of people that they went into it kind of expecting it to be like undergrad, and it's real if you went from like a college that wasn't as strict or structured, it's grad school is very different. For me, BYU was honestly pretty hard, and I felt like they prepared us really well for grad school. That was like you need to put all your time and energy into it to be successful, but a lot of people didn't have those same like the study habits or anything that they were really prepared for the workload that we were going to have. And so I'd say just being ready to take on something very different than what you've done before. I know for me, I was very busy in undergrad. I did a lot of things. And honestly, busyness wise, I've kind of felt the same undergrad and grad, but in undergrad, I was doing a lot of different things. In grad school, I'm just as busy, but it's basically mostly school plus the few extra things that I've added on myself. And so you want to go into it ready to take on something that's harder than what you've done before. I think that's the biggest thing is that a lot of people aren't prepared for that going into it. And so just being mentally ready that grad school is a lot different than what you've done in the past.
I love that you have mentioned that too. And it sounds like you were very adaptable once you realized like you could add other things, you could have hobbies outside of school. So I love that you had shared your story on that as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I was because I definitely thought going because while I do say it is like a lot of school time, like you do have that time for yourself as well. And I really did. Like I think I was so scared of not being prepared because I'd seen so many people being like, grad school is so hard and PT school is so hard that I was so worried. Like I had gotten this like anatomy coloring book and was going through and learning structures. I was pre-studying. And honestly, like that did help me that I was prepared and it was awesome. And especially doing stop Pilates as well. A lot of the things I actually learned doing that completely carried over into PT school, which was really cool to see.
Yeah.
But and so that's actually one piece of advice I have is if you have time before starting PT school, 100% go and work on getting certifications in like some sort of fitness thing that you love to do. I know a lot of people do like certified personal trainers or strength and conditioning specialists, but I loved doing stop Pilates because so much of it rehab and body wise carried directly over into what I learned my first semester of PT school, which was really cool to see. I don't really remember what I was saying before that, but that took me on a different tangent, which is okay.
That's really good advice. No, I don't know. I think that was a great tangent. Because I've heard that from other people too. I forgot who was saying it, but like to get your CSCS, I
Hmm.
know a lot of third year PT students actually get it, but I think it's super smart to do it
Hmm.
before you're in school. So that's a great point that you made.
Yeah, because I feel like this is one of the things that I kind of caught me off guard is the time between accepting what program you get into and then starting your program. No one talks about that time period and how weird it is because you've been working for like the past 4 years
Right.
on getting into this program or however long, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you've gotten in and you're done. Like there's nothing you need to do to get in. You're in the program. You're just kind of sitting and waiting for months for anything to happen. So I remember having a time where I was like, what do I do with myself? I'm not having to get observation hours. I'm not having to like prove myself for letters of recommendation.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the big things was like going and getting those certifications and just taking advantage of that being an undergrad and those experiences that I had going on around me, I knew wouldn't be happening anymore once I graduated.
Mhm.
So yeah, that time is a time period that's hard. And for anyone watching this out there, know that it is like it's okay to feel kind of lost in that time period between accepting your program and starting it, but just use it as a time to keep growing and try doing things that you won't have time for once you do start grad school.
That is amazing advice. I wish I had heard that as a pre-PC because that's so true. And I feel like that's very relatable to a lot of people.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that felt in that boat. I was like, I hope this is a universal experience a little bit because I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting it at all for sure.
And it can almost feel like a limbo. Like I know some people take a gap year, but some people take less
Mhm.
time. It really depends on the amount of time. And you can really be wondering, like, okay, should I be studying beforehand? Should I just be like enjoying myself, like doing stuff like you had mentioned before too, taking time off? So do you have any advice for like students
Mhm.
in that position? What, in your opinion, what like how they should be spending that time? You kind of had a
Yeah,
certification.
yeah, I was like a little bit with the certification. The certification is like that's my biggest recommendation for sure. And I had a lot of people that were like, "Oh, do not study, don't do anything. Like you'll learn everything you need to your first semester." And I kind of agree with that. I agree that you don't need to overstress. Like, you don't need to go through and relearn everything, but I don't think there's any harm in going over what you learned in anatomy and it being a little bit more prepared. Because for
Yeah.
me, like, I at least like went through the bones and knew all of those bony landmarks, and that made it way easier for me because I wasn't relearning everything once I started this course. If I was going and doing the ords and insertions, I knew exactly like where it was talking about because I'd gone over those bony landmarks. So I personally don't think there's any harm in just going over like the foundationals, but don't overstress on if you have other things going on in life, you will be completely fine going into PT school without studying. But for me, it helped me to feel a lot more successful my first semester going in by doing that. But my third thing I would say is also take the time to travel and go on fun vacations with your friends and take up those last little opportunities that you won't have the time to go do in school. For me, like that's been the biggest reset for me is anytime I've had a little bit of off time that I'm not in school, like even now between semesters, like going on trips, having those fun things you're looking forward to, do them while you can and take advantage of those breaks that you have, whether it's before starting your program, between semesters, make the most of it because you don't need to make school your whole life, as I said before.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Callie, for sharing your experience and your expertise. I think this is going to be so helpful for so many students.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me here today.